Hi, everybody. I think we've got a fair few either online or or joining the call. So thank you to everyone for registering your interest in joining us today, and for joining us too. You'll see I've got the presentation ready. Just in terms of a bit of context and the way that we'll structure the webinar, we've structured it in a way that everybody's microphones are off, so there's no opportunity for questions, but I'll touch on that at the end. We're recording the session, so it will be available online afterwards if you need to revisit anything, or if any of your peers would like to watch it. And it's half an hour. I'll try and cover as much as I can. I expect we've got a real mixed group on the line, so we've got probably different people at different stages. So I'll try and cover as much as I can, make it as general as possible, so that it appeals to as many people as possible. So just bear with me on that, but I'll try and guide you on the right things and in the right areas. So so RICS APC. What I'll do is I'll give you a very quick introduction to me and Quantic as a business, just a bit of background. I will provide a very brief overview of the APC, so not too much detail, because a lot of it depends on what your background is, what education you've got, what experience you've got. So there's and might not be feasible to cover all of it, and every sort of step in the process, but I'll try and give you a sort of end-to-end overview. And then really the lion's share of the session will be focused on the quantity surveying core competencies. So those are the 6 listed there. I'll be focused at level 3, which is advising. And what I'll do, or the idea is that I just share some thoughts on how you might approach each of those competencies, just unpick them a little bit. What I tend to find when I mentor candidates is they overthink it, and really there's some probably simple things that you do every day, that you advise on every day, that you don't realize is actually advice. So I'll try and help with that, and that's really what we'll cover. So it'll be more focused on experience record, interview, and just helping you with some ideas. So in terms of me and my credentials, if you like, I'm a contractor's QS by background. I generally operate performing quantum expert work and claims work at the moment, and my qualifications, particularly RICS and RICS registered expert witness, and my background is international, across the UK, Australia, Hong Kong. In terms of RICS, though, I'll come on to this at the end, but I have published some articles on the RICS APC. I have acted as an assessor for probably the best part of 10 years. So some of this will be me talking about what I would look for and how I approach my questioning, and that those insights might help you prepare your experience record and prepare for your assessment. And I also counsel. I also act as counsellor to numerous candidates. So I've got a group of 4 at the moment who I work with, and we do regular sessions to support them through the process end to end. So hopefully I know a little bit about RICS APC that I can share with the group, and you pick up some things that you can take into your assessment process. So just very quickly a bit about Quantic, while I've got a large and diverse group on the call. We are a quantity surveying business. We work for contractors, specialist subcontractors, and law firms. We deal with big issues and big disputes, as you can see. We provide advisory services, quantity surveying services, claims services, and expert witness services. and we provide those across the UK. So we're headquartered in Leeds, but we work on issues across the UK, and we do have some in Ireland at the moment. So that graphic needs to be updated, Northern and Southern Ireland. But I guess just moving on to what you are really here for, one of the daunting things I found when I did it, and I find with candidates as well, is getting started is probably the hardest thing. And you know you want to do it, you look at the website, you decide it's all too complicated, you go on to something else, and then you forget about it for a few weeks. So hopefully what I'll talk through here just helps you skip through some of that. So there are, or there were at the time this presentation was prepared, and I think it's still the case, there were 22 pathways to choose from across land, property, built environment. So there are land surveyors, there's valuation surveyors, there's agricultural surveyors. I think there's a real wide range. Project management is in the RICS, probably has a pathway as well. So there are a lot of disciplines or a lot of surveying types across the institution. Each of those pathways has its own pathway guide. And within those pathway guides, there are mandatory competencies. So across all of the 22 pathways, every surveyor has to demonstrate their competence at the right level for the mandatories, regardless of whether you're a building surveyor, quantity surveyor, or land surveyor. Everyone has to cover those competencies. Where we differentiate, or where we sort of diverge from other surveyors, is the technical competencies, and those are divided into the core competencies, which are the 6 that I mentioned, and I'll come on to. So they are the primary skills of your chosen pathway, and then optional competencies. So for us as quantity surveyors, and I'll cover this shortly, you have to demonstrate competence to level 2 for 2 of those optionals, and you have to demonstrate level 3 competence for the core. Little tip, ensure your competency selections reflect your role and the experience you'll be gaining. So the optional competencies are quite broad, they're very broad. So pick the ones that suit, and I'll show you what they are, but pick ones that are relevant to your day-to-day role. If you don't do them, don't pick them. And the quantity surveying pathway guide looks like this. So that's the front. The latest edition, as far as I'm aware, is August 2018. You'll find it online through a simple search. I've got a hyperlink here. Let me just see if this goes through. Might need to come out. You might not be able to see that actually because it's showing the presentation. But if you go online and find it, that document is essentially the Bible as far as your APC is concerned. And if you think about it like this, most on this call are quantity surveyors, but if you think about the pathway guide as the employer's requirements or the requirements that you need to meet, your experience record is the contractor's proposal. So you have to demonstrate how and why you meet the competency description and the levels required. So this is an unbelievably important document, and for the competencies that you are following, you should be reading this, understanding it, and knowing it. And I'll go into that in a bit of detail shortly, just to show you how I would think about and assess candidates at level 3. So the competencies themselves, there are 3 levels, and very simply, level 1 is knowing. So you probably, or a lot of people know a lot just from CPD, from attending university, various courses. That's level 1 knowledge. You know about something. I know about payment notices because I attended a course on payment notices. That's level 1 competence. Then you've got level 2, which is doing it. So I know about payment notices because I attended a course, and I have applied that knowledge because I prepare payment notices every week or every month as part of the month evaluation cycle. And last month I prepared one for, XYZ subcontractors, and I valued their work and I issued the notice compliant with the contract. So I do it. Advice, level 3 is reasoned advice and depth of knowledge. So this isn't telling people what to do, that's doing. This is normally a particular situation or a problem arises and somebody, be it a business leader or a client, is reliant on your professional skill, competence and judgment to give them advice and inform a decision. So often advice will arise from a catch-22 situation. You can do something, but these are the consequences, or you can do something else and there's a different set of consequences. What's the best decision for the project or the business in that particular situation? So that's what you need to be demonstrating. You must reach the required level in the logical progression and in successive stages. So inevitably, you don't start by advising, you start by gaining knowledge, you then apply that knowledge in a practical workplace, and then you give advice on it once you've done it many times and you've seen various issues. From a QS perspective, these are the competencies. So this appears in the pathway guide. Forgive me, I can't remember which page it is. Mandatory, so these are the ones that all QSs follow. And core competencies, these are the ones that are specific to QSs. For commercial management or design economics, it will depend on whether you are a PQS, in which case you'll be design economics, or whether you're a contractor's QS, in which case you're commercial management. For the purpose of this presentation, I followed commercial management because I am a contractor's QS, but that's just something to bear in mind. And then these are the optionals that you need to demonstrate to level 2. So typically for a contractor's QS, you're probably involved in conflict avoidance, management and dispute resolution. You probably or should be doing contract administration. You might be doing programming, maybe, but to do programming and put programs together might be a separate function. So you might know about it to level 1, but you're not level 2. And then risk management as a contractor's QS, that is probably part of your day-to-day role. So they're the ones I'd steer towards. Of course, though, it depends on what your specific responsibilities are, but they tend to be the ones that people select. And then in terms of final submission, just a quick overview: diary, summary of experience, case study, CPD record, complete the ethics module, council sign off, proposer and seconder sign off. Probably the most important thing is your competence. So your summary of experience will contain your competence, and your case study will be the best example of your competence. That comprises about 50 minutes of your interview. So demonstrating that you are at the required level of competence, both in writing, in the submission that you make, and then in the answers that you give, it is crucial to being successful in the assessment process, because it is the dominant part of your assessment. And then just as an overview, there's typically 2 sessions a year. One is coming up in the next couple of months, and there's one at the end of the year. So that's the sort of background information. I'll now just skim through the competencies, so the core competencies. So commercial management of construction works. Here you'll see level 1, so what you need to do to demonstrate knowledge, so knowing. What you need to do at level 2, doing, and then where you need to be at level 3, advising. If we focus on the level 3 element of this competence, and the reason I say this is when I did my training as an assessor, we were taught to start at level 3. So when we review, or when I review a candidate's submission, I will start at level 3, and if I feel their assessment is at level 3 standard, I will ask them level 3 questions. If I feel it's a level 2 answer, so they tell me a lot about what they do, but they don't tell me much about their advice, I will drop down to level 2. And if I mean, I can't remember a situation, but there might be a situation where someone hasn't even told you what they do. They just tell you what they know. In which case, I'm right down to level 1. And it goes without saying that if I'm starting at level 1 with your questions, you know, in a 1-hour interview, it's going to be very difficult for the candidate in the time required to demonstrate level 3 competence. So walking in with solid, level 3 experience in your experience record is a critical enabler to your success in the assessment. Sometimes people struggle with the bullets. So what I'll do for each of the 6 is I'll just give you some ideas as to how you are giving advice, or how you might be giving advice. They might be specific to you. They might open up some thinking about how you do it differently, but hopefully to help you develop your experience record ready for submission. So bullet 1, monitor, analysing, reporting and advising at a senior level on project cash flows and profitability. For most contractors, QSs, you are doing this every month. You'll have a monthly project review where you report on, after analysing and monitoring project cash flow and profitability. Typically, most call these CVRs. And you will give advice to senior management where cash flow or profitability are impacted. So maybe there's been a delay on the project. What does that mean to profitability? What does that mean to cash flow? You are giving that advice possibly every month. So don't overlook that, even though it's day job. It is advice. There's a particular problem. There's different ways of dealing with it. And you're helping the business decide on the best course of action. Ditto for supply chain tender returns, higher than budget. So, you've got a package budget of $500,000, the return comes in at 600. There's potentially a profitability issue there. You have different options. One is place the order at the tender return that you receive. The other one is you might look for cost savings. There's different things that you might do to try and manage the profitability impact, but that is advice. You will give advice to the business on, these are the options. We can have a place order at a loss, or we can do this, or we can do the other, and you'll be advising the business and the project team. So 2 very simple things that most people do month to month or day to day that should be captured in this level 3. For bullet 2, which is advising on financial implications. So examples, changing the delivery strategy from self-perform to subcontract labour, shifts the cash flow profile. As an example. The other one is the financial viability of a subcontractor. So you might see that there's a problem, and you're giving advice on, if we do nothing, this could be the outcome. If we take these steps to mitigate the risk, then this is the potential risk. But you're advising the business and the project team on what to do in that particular situation using your competence as a quantity surveyor. Construction tech and environmental services at level 3. So the first bullet here, advising on the choice of construction solutions for your project. Design and construction meetings. So you are the person who understands the budget. You will advise, or tell people what's in the budget and give them advice on the cost impact of different solutions that might be considered for a problem that's occurred. And if you think about one simple example on the advice you might give, changing a window from one to the other, theoretically sounds easy, add one, omit another. But what you'd expect a candidate to show is they understand, well, actually, we've already designed for a particular window. So not only do we have the cost of redesigning, but we also might have implications on the building services. There might be more solar gain, there might be, it might not be a vented window. So there's implications on the mechanical and electrical services. It might be that some of them have already been ordered. in which case there might be a cost to might not be restocking, but changing the unit from one to the other. Some of them may have been installed, in which case they need to be removed and replaced. So your advice is not just the add and omit, it's the understanding the implication of the change, the wider implication of the change, and giving advice on the cost impact that may have. So that's a simple example of something that you might do day to day, but covering it in your experience record demonstrates, real strong understanding of construction technology, and that's what you want to see from quantity surveyors. Bullet 2, reporting on the impact of different design solutions. Value engineering is an obvious one as a QS, and client optioneering. So client comes and says, I've got a couple of options that I'd like to pursue. Which one is the most cost effective? You might give that advice in that situation. For contract practice, level 3. So this one's quite a tricky one for contractors QSs, because, and even more trickier for subcontractors QSs, because you follow the head contract and your selection of form of contract pretty much follows the head contract, and the subcontract will follow. In those circumstances, you might be asked hypothetical questions. So why would you recommend one over the other, or advise one over the other? So just something to bear in mind. Hypothetical questions are allowed and might be used. So some examples of bullet 1, stepping down obligations from one to the other, and working up a suitable risk allocation. So do you step down all the obligations, including design, to the domestic sealant subcontractor? Probably not. You'll have a more suitable subcontract for them. That might be labour and materials type subcontract rather than a full design contract. So you are selecting an appropriate form of subcontract, because of the risk allocation that you're seeking to transfer. So small example, but can open this one up for contractors and subcontractors QSs. Bullet 2, advising on appropriate notices that need to be issued and when they need to be issued. Probably the most effective one for me is operating non-completion clauses. So if a subcontractor hasn't completed, making sure that you give the required notices so that you preserve your right to deduct damages. That's quite a good one, because there's a financial implication on the back of not doing it, and you must do it under most forms of contract to preserve the right to deduct damages. Bullet 3, appropriateness of amendments. So you might be involved in negotiating amendments on a contract by contract basis. So how do they impact the risk profile? That's what you're looking. That's what I'm looking for as an assessor. Not what does that amendment necessarily mean, but how does it impact the risk profile? And is that satisfactory for your business to accept that change in risk profile, or isn't it? That's what you really, for me, I'm really testing at level 3 there. As far as project finance control and reporting goes, there's 3 bullets here. So bullet 1, advice on project team compliance with control procedures could be acceptable, depending on, is it doing or is it advising? There might be different mechanisms in the contract, and advising the project team to follow one and not the other for certain reasons might be suitable. Establishing and governing project controls, and advising the project team on which procedures to follow. Bullet 2, project finance control and reporting. So final account forecasting is advice. You are, and speaking to bullet 3, often giving advice to your client or to your business about the impact of risk and opportunities on the outcome of the project costs. So that risk is more severe and is more likely, therefore the final account looks like it's going to go up. Or alternatively, we feel like we've managed and mitigated that risk, so we don't need to maintain an allowance for it anymore, in which case the final account forecast has reduced. So this is advice, and clients and businesses rely on the accuracy of this advice for budgeting, for cash flow. So that's really crucial at level 3 for this particular sentence. And then procurement and tendering at level 3 for the first bullet. Really, I'm looking here when we talk about level 3. What is the optimum route to market for a particular package or a particular scope of work? So it's not just following what you did before, it's stepping back and thinking, what am I buying? What are we procuring? What risk profile do we want to transfer? What is the market willing to take? And think about all those things to work up the optimum route to market. Sometimes the answer is obvious. You go in single stage D and B because it's a such and such package, and that's what the market takes. But that, sometimes you default to that selection and discount others without even thinking about it. But you have made an active choice, and that is advice, the procurement route. And then what are the pros and cons of different routes? So for a particular subcontractor, is it beneficial to involve them early to get the benefit of design advice, or isn't it? There's a cost to that. You limit yourself to one competitor potentially very early in the process, but the overall value proposition might say that that's the right thing to do. So can you articulate that and give that advice? Bullet 2, managing the tendering and negotiation process. So I'd be looking for, do you run a fair process? How do you deal with issues that arise? So somebody issues a tender late. What advice do you give to the business or the project team about how to deal with that? Do you discount it? Do you allow it? Why would you do one over the other? It might depend on the situation, but how are you dealing with those issues? And then bullet 3 is procurement and tendering report, giving sound and reasoned written advice. So we intend to appoint such and such to perform this particular scope of work, and we recommend them above other subcontractors because they presented the best value proposal, they had the best team, whatever. That is advice, and putting that into a report is what you'd be looking for bullet 3. And importantly, you don't start with the conclusion and work backwards. So we want to appoint this subcontractor, so we're going to get the process to fit. The advice should arise out of analysis. So we've analysed the options, and for these reasons, we feel this particular option is the best value for whoever's spending the money. Quantification and costing. So the final one. Bullet 1, methods of measurement and advising on appropriate methods of measurement in a given situation, and ditto for costing approaches. Why would you use cost plan rates over first principles pricing, for example? Bullet 2 on pricing documents. Do you need a full bill of quantities if you're just getting some market rates for some initial cost advice? Or do you need a full bill because you are procuring, you are going to go into order, and headline rates are no longer suitable for the contract? So advising on what's suitable in a particular situation. And then probably importantly, this bullet 3, quantification and costing. Monthly valuation is advice. You are valuing something, a package of work, or you're valuing a contract. You are advising the business or even your client that is the correct value for that particular month, and they'll either agree with that, in most cases they will, and pay it, or they'll disagree with it. But valuation in itself is advice, because it's often not a perfect science, and judgments need to be made within it. So don't overlook that one. So I've raced through in the interest of time and trying to get that done in half an hour. The competencies, and particularly the level 3 competencies, because they are crucial to your APC process. What you can see there is I've focused on the competencies. What do the words say? What do the bullets say? And identified some ideas for how you might demonstrate your competence at that level, just to open up some thinking. Hopefully that's been helpful for you. The recording's available, so if I've gone through too fast in certain parts, don't worry, we'll make this available online, and you can go back to it and use it when you are working up your experience record. And then if you do want a bit more detail, one second. We do have on our website and then I'll just share the website with you. So this is the pathway guide that I had open before. You can see it's quite a big document. It's got every competence in there. In our articles, you can search for RICS APC. So we do have them on there, so you can go back to those too. And we also have, and will be making available content and information on TikTok, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube as well. So please follow us on those platforms. We're going to be putting out regular tips, not just on APC, but quantity surveying generally and construction industry issues. So please follow us. So hopefully that whistle-stop tour through the APC process has been helpful. Hopefully you've picked up something that you can use in your APC process. We will send around the form and ask for some feedback. Within that feedback, I've put a section in there for you to ask a question. So if there is something burning that you wanted to ask me, you can do so in that form. So please complete that, and we'll probably prepare a short video where we answer any questions we get that are specific to a particular individual. So thank you for joining. Sorry for going slightly over time. I've crammed a lot in, and we hope to see you at our next webinar next month. Thank you.